Good news, everyone! Talking Futurama is coming back for Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2.
Fresher than a summer ham, this podcast comes every Friday. And if you sign up at the $5 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you can hear each episode as it goes live.
That's right. Sign up today at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons for $5 to hear Talking Futurama every Friday throughout the rest of 2020 and also all the previous episodes we've done so far.
So head over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons now, or we're going to clamp you.
Shut up and take my money.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, recorded in a house in the middle of nowhere. I am one of your hosts, the space dog breeder, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I wish Eustace died in every episode.
Me too. Today's episodes are the Courage the Cowardly Dog episodes, Everyone Wants to Direct, and Remembrance of Courage Past.
This shouldn't happen to a dog. Ouch!
So these episodes aired on March 3rd, 2000 and November 22nd, 2002, respectively, and this is one of our patron requests. Is that right, Henry?
That's right, Bob. This was chosen by premium patron L, as they go by on Twitter. And yeah, they wanted us to do Courage the Cowardly Dog. Why? As they said to us, it's one of my favorite childhood shows, and all of the memories came flooding back to me as I was rewatching the series. This show has it all. Scares, laughs, emotional moments, wonderful and creepy character design, and spooky music. In the end, I decided on a more traditionally supernatural episode, Everyone Wants to Direct, and one that's more grounded and deals with serious issues like trauma and loss, Remembrance of Courage Past. The former provided plenty of nightmare fuel and still holds up with its creepy premise, while the latter is actually the penultimate episode of the series and helped it go out on a high note of emotions. It's still one that sticks with me after all these years. Who would have thought that a cartoon about an elderly couple and their pet dog literally living in the middle of nowhere would allow for such a variety of storytelling opportunities? So yeah, that sums it up pretty well, Elle.
I think so.
For me in my teens when this premiered, I do remember watching it some. Honestly, I watched Ed, Edd and Eddy more often than I watched Courage the Cowardly Dog.
And this premiered in 1999?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Ed, Edd and Eddy was early 99, and this was late 99, though obviously it existed as a pilot before that.
I wasn't as into this era of the cartoons as much, but like Ed, Edd and Eddy, my TV would just be on Cartoon Network after the year 2001 just because of Adult Swim. It would just be on that channel, and I would turn it on when I got home from work or college or whatever, and I would like half watch a lot of these and full watch some of them, and I did respect just how like dark and creepy and giving me anxiety these episodes. I was like, if I was like 5 years younger, I probably really would have gotten into the show. And now when you go on YouTube to look up, Courage clips, you'll see how it haunted everyone who is like now 30. They're like, here are the scariest moments. Here are the things that spooked me out the most from this show.
Yeah, we talk on that Garfield Halloween special about how that thing, when we saw it as little kids, really stuck with us, the scares in that. So I think, yeah, something that scary when you're a little kid can be very formative of a memory.
And I did see the pilot for this before the show. It was on like much earlier than the show itself, and I liked the pilot a lot. And then when I found out they were making a series, I was like, oh, this is cool. And I think the first time I watched it, I was a bit put off by the fact that everyone talked, and I wasn't expecting that, even Courage. But now I realize like that was a dumb reason to like be put off of the show, and it's better that everyone can talk in this show. That needs to be a little more complicated than that short.
Yeah, I mean the need for dialogue, it's already kind of a very direct premise of a show of like most episodes are. A weird thing shows up, Muriel and Eustace don't recognize it as a threat, and Courage must get over his fear and save them from themselves. Like, so if you repeat that without even dialogue, I think the repetitiveness would be even more obvious.
And they even give Courage like a quote unquote friend in the form of his computer.
Yes.
Which after I saw it in this first episode, I was like, oh, this computer came up a few times. It was just like Courage needs someone to talk to.
Yeah, someone needs to give him information in some way. They also can't have him have conversations with a person. Like there's some playing with the line of like, can people hear him or not? Watching it again, I had that Family Guy quote in my head, like, so can the family hear the baby or what?
Right. I do like how in the series, and I just remembering like, the things I've watched of this before, like the threat of death was always present in these episodes. I was like, that's kind of rare for a kid's cartoon to be like, this couple will die unless Courage intervenes, or like torture, something even like worse potentially.
Yeah, and the use of the word death in one of these episodes too is like, wow, I'm kind of shocked at that. I can see why this also didn't stick with me as much in my teen to young adult years, which was just that there's something about how like every episode Courage is just like abused and ignored and just anxious all the time that it stressed me out.
Yeah, it can be a stressful show, and the character of Eustace is just so awful.
Also,
I think it works in the short more because he is killed by Courage later in the short because he turns into a chicken.
Yeah.
But like if you have that character in every episode rarely getting his comeuppance, it is kind of frustrating to watch. Even if Courage has a happy ending, the fact that old man is still just like a real bastard.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to pull apart the family dynamic in it, it's just an abusive family of just like the nice old mom and the mean dad who mistreats the dog. Like it's you just feel bad. And yeah, the invention of the character of Eustace in the original short is like, you feel good that he's dead. And at the end of the pilot, when it's just Courage and Muriel together alone, it's like, oh good, this is how it should be.
Yeah.
They're both happier without this asshole
So
around.
many cartoons in my childhood about abusive fathers.
Yes, yeah. I mean, as I will say, going through the creator's life, he doesn't directly say that anywhere, but I do think he's going through his own demons in these stories here, I think. But yeah, I guess why don't we talk about the history of Courage the Cowardly Dog and how it came to be? It's funny doing this one. I think this goes out right after Ed, Edd and Eddy.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, and this really is the other side of the coin from it. Just replace Vancouver with New York City and all the.
Do I have to?
I'm sorry, Bob. Just for today.
Okay.
But yes, it's pretty much the same kind of story of a independent animator who works their way up through many of the same channels and employers and eventually lands their own show, which they also produce outside of the Hanna-Barbera system and outside of Burbank. So I'm talking about the creator of the show, John R. Dilworth.
Funny name.
Apparently his real name, I think. It's not an affected one. He's
Dilworth.
And I appreciate that Dilworth is very giving in interviews. Like I found 20 years of interviews with him to really sketch together his life here. And Dilworth grew up in New York City, went to New York School of Visual Arts, where he practiced animating and was learning the ropes there. Graduated in 1985 with a bachelor's in fine arts. He produced a student film named Pierre, which is about a snooty French artist battling a canvas that will not let him create. So I think that really sums up him pretty well. Just that he has this snooty character that shows he's like a very artistically minded and high-minded, but he also is really into silly gag stuff and old-timey, like he said, Bob Clampett, Tex Avery especially, big influences him just as much as like Salvador Dali or other snootier choices. While at School of Visual Arts, he cites a major influence on him was SVA teacher, animator, and animation historian Howard Beckerman, who he did a lot of indie shorts that if you watch some of Beckerman's indie shorts, you can see a lot of what Dilworth would take with him. And also early in his career, he was working out of the Chelsea Animation Studios, which would end up doing a lot of ink and paint on Courage over time. He worked with them a lot. Chelsea is an area of New York City. It was probably like the biggest ink and paint place based in New York. And he also worked with independent animator Michael Sporn, who was the writer of the Remembrance episode we're doing today. Michael Sporn, when I looked it up, I was like, oh, I watched these as a kid. He did, if you remember when we were kids, the books like Dr. DeSoto and Crocodile Smile that then got put into like Reading Rainbow shorts or into Sesame Street.
Okay.
Sporn animated those, or like Pizza, if you've seen that one. So there's actually, looking looking into this, I'm like, oh, the Children's Television Workshop is the main source of income for most New York animators. They all worked on Sesame Street or Sesame Street alike.
And those sickos were funded by the government.
Yeah, these handouts, we got to cut them off. But yes, straight out of school. He's working on some animation in the area, but also, I think, selling out to the man working at the advertising agency Baldy, Bloom, and Whelan. But while there, he'd still be working on some art house stuff, including, it's really more of like a slideshow of pencil drawings called The Limited Bird.
I watched that, and that is so different looking than his like very stylishly ugly 90s outputs.
Yeah, I think he was trying something really different there, or maybe he had some different collaborators on it. And based on his IMDb credits, I think he was working a lot just at a bunch of different houses in New York Animation then, a lot of educational programming. Like in 1990, there was an HBO special called Earth Day Birthday. He was an animator on that. And since he's in the New York area, one of the biggest wigs in 1990 in New York Animation, who was getting a lot of checks from Viacom, Jim Jenkins of Jumbo Pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So I think he animated on at least one Doug in those early days.
It's funny that like he was able to work within that style because his style is so distinct. In fact, I don't know if you'll get to it in your notes. It's not that important in his career, but there are some little bits of Ren and Stimpy animated by him.
That's
and
right.
It's like they are Courage characters. They just change completely into like his style.
Yeah, they were in 93. They were the wraparounds for the Stimpy's fart thing.
Yeah,
right?
on the VHS tape, and it is just his stuff.
Well, that shows you like they were desperate and games animation wasn't ready yet to draw that stuff, I bet. But yeah, Dilworth did touch a little Ren and Stimpy. Also in 1991, while working on some Jumbo stuff, he released his second independent short, When Lily Laney Moved In, which honestly is like too cloyingly trying to be a Woody Allen thing. And it's about a cute young couple. And though if you watch it, you can definitely tell Dilworth has a thing for goth girls.
Well, who doesn't? Present company excluded.
But it's just too cutesy for me, and it's just like, yeah, I get it. You really like Annie Hall. I get it. So hard at work at New York City. Obviously, he's going to start working on some Viacom-funded stuff. He works on a couple of Nickelodeon idents and stuff too, but his big break comes after the first spate of Nicktoons. They're looking for their next round of pilots, and he directs the Jumbo-produced Psyched for Snuppa, which is the Sniz and Fondue short, the original one. Sniz and Fondue heads out there who love Kablam.
Okay, from Kablam.
Yes, yeah. The two little boys, one who wears a chef hat and they're like weasels or something. It was based on a comic created by Mike Perlstein, and they produced this short in 1992, and it was between that and the Rocco short, and Linda Semensky, who we talked about in Ed, Edd n Eddy, she goes with the Rocco short instead of that, though she still back pockets it's like, I want to do Sniz and Fondue later. So a few years after that, they do okay to do a series of Sniz and Fondue shorts that are going to be on Kablam, but Dilworth directly said in one interview, I didn't like working with the creator of that series. So, but also he said too, he wanted to work on his own things. And by the time 1996 rolled around for Sniz and Fondue, Jumbo Pictures had been bought by Disney, so they couldn't produce it either. And Dilworth had his own things he wanted to work on. But
yeah, I just looked up a Sniz and Fondue short. It just unlocked so many memories. Like, yeah. I've seen this.
You've seen a million of them. Yeah, they were never my favorite on Kablam, but I liked them all right. And in the original short, there is a lot more energy in the original short that Dilworth directs than in the more pedestrian and safe Sniz and Fondues from the Kablam era. But yeah, so after working on that stuff for Viacom, he landed his first personal animation gig for paid stuff that he would be of his own creation in the effed up cartoons department of MTV.
Yes, we talked all about this in the last episode about Ed, Edd n Eddy, but just to reiterate some of that, just what a great time to be an animation fan, and MTV was just footing the bill for all of this cool stuff by weird ass creators.
Yeah, all these weird ass creators who did like a one-off short that would get passed around on VHS in like 19 1989. By 93, thanks to the success of Beavis and Butthead, MTV was like, we're cutting checks to any of you dorks who can draw something. Like,
And it was like the glorious early days of cable where it was like, what will stop you from changing the channel? We'll put any weird thing you've never seen before on TV to get you to stop changing channels and stay here.
the Brothers Grunt got to be a show because it was so weird to watch guys poop. Like, that's all it was.
We've never seen it before.
And so, yes, like many others in his generation, Dilworth got a couple shots on liquid television. The first one he produced was Smart Talk with Raisin, which is named after the girl in the short. It's a girl and a boy. And honestly, the one short that exists, you can see the template from Courage in there, but from a different angle.
Yeah, and like a lot of his stuff, there's like a lot of live action stock footage cut in and also pictures of him.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of pictures of John Dilworth over 30 years if you take in all of his shorts in one day like I did. Yeah, and in Smart Talk with Raisin, it's about a nice little girl and a mean little boy, and they're watching their cute little dog, Hamilton, try to do a magic trick, and the little boy is being very mean to the dog, like, where's your parents? No one loves you. Like,
And,
that was a Trump voice I did there.
A lot of the Dilworth like signatures, like always one eye is just like this weird like askew mound coming out of the head, but like the eyelid can still close over it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, all the uneven eyes are so his style. Like, it's odd to see just symmetry in those character designs.
It's the ugly 90s style I desperately miss, that like these characters don't work in 3D at all. They're just so hideous, but in a very like intentional, well-designed way.
Yeah, hideousness, but with an artistic drive to it, and also like wild takes. Like Raisin, she's the cute little girl for much of it until like she gets mad, and then she turns into this crazy. Like Courage is just wild takes the show.
Yeah,
like, that's
for sure.
And as Dilworth would say, he actually had planned a second half of that, but Liquid Television didn't pay for it, or it got canceled before there would have been a second Smart Talk with Raisin one. But after that, he then in the same year did something called The Angry Cabaret, which was basically made to showcase music videos Beavis and Butthead style, but it's like weird drawings that walk by a screen that shows a music video. And both of those actually were another What a Cartoon connection, produced in part out of Colossal Pictures in San Francisco, the Back to the Future studio.
Awesome.
So that was 93 for him, as well as the Ren and Stimpy VHS work. But I think his big push forward in his career came with the infectious short The Dirty Birdie in 1994.
And that was also on Liquid Television or Cartoon Sushi, or
It was
one
Cartoon
of the
Sushi, yeah, which was run out of the Ed and Eddie studio.
That's perfect.
So, yeah.
Yeah, like that short is great. I think like he just found that like existing track of music and fell in love with it and wrote an entire short around it.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear this song, which is called... Yeah. Yeah, that's The Big Laugh by Jürgen Schlatter?
Whoa.
Jürgen Schlattner. Yeah.
Oh, there's more.
But the short is perfect and in just a joke delivery system of a single setup of a cat and a bird on a tree. And every time the cat turns away, the bird will moon the cat.
I love that bird's butt. It's like an asymmetrical, like weird butt.
And it's just funny to see a butt. Like, you just laugh at that. And that, though, as Dilworth would say in an interview, oh, well, this was about a dysfunctional codependent relationship. That he says that the bird wants love from the cat, and the cat can only express love by beating the crap out of the bird for his stupid jokes.
I like that at the first you watch this short, you're like, well, this bird's a real jerk, but then you find out he's in love with the cat, and they give it a happy-ish ending.
I think too in the short as it aired on Liquid Television, a pin would pop the balloon butt in it, but I think there was like, oh, you can't show that, and so then it just cuts to a photograph of Dilworth gasping as the pin would hit the butt. Dilworth said in a 99 interview that The Dirty Birdie was about timing homework for him, because he said he hadn't to that point figured out animation timing for gag purposes. So this one, which unlike some of the other ones he'd done before, is just so simple, like dialogue-free series of jokes that I think he learned a lot.
It's so precise. The cat keeps looking over at the bird as the bird's about to moon the cat. It's just so perfectly done.
And every time it goes, rah ha 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 ha, the pants go down. You just have such a great laugh at it, God. And 1994, for that independent release, it was the first time he fully officially incorporated what was his independent studio, calling it Stretch Films. He said, despite the Dirty Bird's acclaim, he was close to broke soon afterwards, but he said a meeting that the Dirty Bird got him with Fred Seibert at the newly rebooted Hanna-Barbera Studios opened up a brand new world for him. At that point, we've said it many times before, in 1994-95, Hanna-Barbera is doing their pilot program for a bunch of new stuff. It's where Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, they all spun out of that. And so, as Dilworth tells the story, he went to his pitch wearing a full, novelty spacesuit, like this silver, silly-looking spacesuit, wore it all day, and pitched to them a story of a dangerous alien chicken attacking a panicky dog on a remote farm. The dog looks a little like the dog in the Raisin short. And a nice old lady and a mean old man would live with this unnamed dog who would save them, unbeknownst to them, from this dangerous chicken. And Fred Seibert's like, all right, here you go. Boom. Gave him the money to fund the 1995 short film Chicken from Outer Space, which is a almost entirely wordless series of gags that really does feel like a classic Tex Avery short. It does stand out among all the other shorts from that first run of it because it doesn't feel like it's trying to be a current clone. It feels like a clone of a much older time.
And as I said earlier, none of the characters talk except at the end. Courage has like a Jackie Mason impression as his voice, which did not stick around.
No, I think they realized he can't talk like that every episode. But
we heard that in the clip up front too.
Yes, yeah. The pilot is where it peaked. I think there are some really, really good episodes of the series itself, but the pilot is my favorite because I think it's his best enemy is this chicken, and it has some of the best animation. I think too, Dilworth would say over time, he just had to let go his perfectionism that he had on indie films where he's like, I control every frame of this. And once you get into full production on a show, you can't do that.
Yeah, these kinds of interesting and asymmetrical 90s designs, they kind of get lost in the translation when you're sending things overseas. Like you need more control over them than you're allowed to have with a production like this.
And so the short is the most successful in a certain way of that round of shorts because it is nominated for an Oscar. It is an Oscar-nominated short. Cartoon Network getting nominated for an Oscar is huge for them. And I think Dilworth knew that, even if I don't win this, I'm getting a series because I just got them an Oscar nomination. They would lose to A Close Shave, which don't blame them. You're not beating the best Wallace and Gromit short.
That's unfair.
Yeah, it's hard for him. And that I think, honestly, he is slightly mad about it. Or I'll say I read in a 2002 interview with him where the guy's like, hey, you'll always be an Oscar-nominated director. That probably opened a lot of doors. He's like, you should ask Nick Park about that. I think he's got 4 of them now. He can hold up a table with them. But hey, you Oscar-nominated. It's still pretty good.
I wish I was. We can win a Podsker.
So Fred Seibert's gone from Cartoon Network, even though he okayed Courage. But Linda Sabinsky is there, and she's into Courage as well. And she'd worked with him a lot in the MTV days. But before, there is a span of time. It's like 4 years in between the release of the pilot and it finally getting a series. And I think it's Cartoon Network could only okay so many series at once budget-wise. But I think, too, it was a Dilworth. He did 2 other things in 97 and 98 that I think took up his time. One was a series of shorts for Sesame Street called Noodles and Ned, which are very simple looking. It's about a man and his pet. He really likes to combo humans with animals in his stuff. And it's also one that has multiple live action photos of Dilworth in it as well. And the next year, Cartoon Network and the Children's Television Workshop had their own series called Big Bag. And he did a series of shorts called Ace and Avery on that too. So he has a long history of doing educational stuff, Dilworth does.
By the time this was picked up, it did feel like it was a little out of place. It felt like it would be more like a 93, 95 show or whatever. By 99, it felt like they were moving more towards like the UPA style flatter characters, and this did feel like the remnants of the like you said, the effed up cartoon era.
Yeah,
just like Ed and Eddie. Like I feel like they got their shows too late. I'm glad they were still popular, but it felt like these shows came too late to really get the momentum from the effed up cartoons boom.
And by the time both of those series ended, it feels like two new eras had gone through it at that point. Like you were seeing these MTV 93 looking ass shows in 2002. After 9/11, you're seeing these things. Like, wow, what? This is from a different time for sure. Yeah, but in 98, Dilworth finally completes the deal with Cartoon Network for a 13 half-hour season order, 2 shorts per episode format, same as Ed and Eddie had right before. And so it would be another Cartoon Network original produced outside of the Hanna-Barbera system and outside of California. Dilworth was very clear of like, hey, I've worked out of California sometimes, but New York is my home and this is my studio. And it's very important for them that they work out in New York City. So they Stretch Studios got to work continually on the show away from the prying eyes of Burbank, which I think too is how this show gets to be so weird as well. They're a little outside of that system, though. He also said, he said Saminsky and Mike Lazo and James Bastian, the executives on it, he had nothing but praise for them in interviews I saw. He said, for example, he said he thought Dilworth wanted Courage to talk more when it started. He says it was all his idea because he's like, kids won't connect to him without him talking. And it was the executives who told him he can talk less. That's why he barely talks in the second one we do in this one.
Yeah, they do hold off. He's not like Garfielding it up. You don't constantly hear his thoughts. He just if he needs to, if it would help the scene if he talked, they'll do it.
Yeah, it's funnier there's some good ones in here where he just goes like, oh no, like that's good. Early adopter of digital animation as well. Ed and Eddie was still being physical, but they were digital.
I think the show suffers a bit because of that, because they just didn't figure it out. And they do some cool stuff with it because they're able to make the show feel more unsettling when it's just like, the demon they meet is like CGI.
Yeah.
Or the demon they meet is just like a man's like live action head or something like that.
Dilworth and his team really like working with mixed media in ways that digital let them do. But yeah, when you watch it on an HD TV now, not unlike watching a 1999 episode of Futurama, you do kind of see the edges on it more than you would in their original version of it in digital. I also read one thing that said they were doing it in the widescreen format, but on the digital, I watched this on Verve, it's all square.
I bought the Amazon versions and it's the 4:3.
Yeah, so I don't know. If it was ever produced in widescreen, it's never been released that way. But Dilworth headed up the thing, not unlike Antonucci as well in Ed, and Eddie. He's the credited director on every episode.
I don't know about that. I believe he's credited, but
Yeah, I get a little sense that he is a very hands-on or wanting to appear hands-on guy. I think too, he could be kind of a difficult to work for perfectionist. It's just one of those things where you see did I see any person I like else work with him? Oh no, I guess not. And I think he didn't shepherd a lot of talent either, or folks who worked on his show didn't go on to create their own shows, whether through opportunity or that Dilworth didn't train them for it. In one of the I think in the first pilot, Chris Piernuski, who would be the titmouse guy going later on, he worked on that one, but that's the only time I see his name in a Dilworth related credit.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's a liar or anything, but they made 100 cartoons in 3 years. Yeah. I find it impossible that he could have directed everything, traditionally been the quote unquote director on everything. I'm sure he touched every episode in some way and was a controlling force in everyone, but director seems very broadly used in this case.
Yeah, it feels a little like Antonucci as well. I wondered about him, where it's do you just want that much credit on all of this stuff? And yeah, Dilworth is also credited as co-writer on every episode too. Though the series had a different head writer, that would be David Stephen Cohen, not David X. Cohen or David S. Cohen. Stephen Cohen.
It's because of this guy that he had to become David X. Cohen.
I believe so. Yeah, I think We had a friend we met in LA who they said when they met David Stephen Cohen, they're like, wow, it's you. And he's like, no, you think I'm the Futurama guy. And that person was like, no, I know you're from Courage. You're great. You should feel proud of yourself for Courage. David Stephen Cohen, he got to start in the 80s. He wrote for a lot of sitcoms, but also kids stuff and live action cartoons. He wrote for Alf and Alf Tales.
Oh, wow.
So live action Alf and cartoon Alf.
He was working with Al Jean and Mike Reese.
You're right. Wow, he did. He also wrote for Parker Lewis Can't Lose and Pee-wee's Playhouse before Courage. And actually right before Courage in 1995, the film Balto, he has a writing credit on that as well, which I always think of as a DreamWorks film, but it's Amblin. It's an Amblin feature right before DreamWorks started. And he also wrote for a couple seasons of Living Single. So I get the feel that he got hired onto Courage to be like, hey, you're a professional, put a tent on this circus kind of guy.
He's like written every kind of show and every kind of cartoon.
Maybe he was just there as an assurance for the money men of like, you can make sure this gets out on time. It could also be one of those things that are like, we don't want this to be a Crick-Faloozy thing where this guy is out of control away from us. Cohen, after the show, he'd write a little more, though I think he's mostly retired now. He's still pretty active on Twitter. He seems like a very New York City liberal kind of guy based on his Twitter account. Seems like a nice dude. His most recent credits he wrote on Arthur in 2015 and on the Viva Pinata CGI series.
Oh, I forgot they made that.
As Dilworth described how their writing works, he says, 90% start with me.
Really?
So I have to laugh at that. Yeah. 90% start with me, and then we work with the team. It's an unusual way to work because some don't physically write. They sit with us and we write verbally. Our head writer, David Stephen Cohen, assembles it all from the meeting. So there you go. It sounds like he's kind of a stenographer of a bunch of like hippies.
Some people don't draw.
And also on the writing team was his sister, Michelle Belly Dilworth. She's a writer on many of the episodes. As for voice actors, this is weird because it's a very New York voice acting group.
I looked up the Eustace actors. I'm like, I'm so glad they got actual old men because the crankiness is just there.
I think he was very insistent on getting people who are all in their 60s at least. Other than Courage, who's voiced by Marty Grabstein, who is a New York character actor. The most of his credits were in stuff that people have seen were like a guy in Law and Order, of a criminal in Law and Order, like one of those guys who, if you watch every single episode of Law and Order, you see the same actor playing a different part across decades. And Marty was one of those guys. And so he's Courage. Muriel, voiced by Thea White, who I believe was not really a professional actress. She was a librarian full time who had been married to a session musician who played with the Beatles, Andy White. He is Scottish, so I think she was born in Jersey, so I think that's where she got her Scottish accent from.
She has a perfectly sweet voice.
She's so great.
And her IMDb picture is of her wearing a Muriel sweatshirt.
Isn't that the sweetest?
Yes.
I love that. She's so proud of it. And Eustace, for the first 3 seasons, voiced by Lionel Wilson, who worked on Deputy Dog in the 60s and Superbook in the 80s. Again, a very just New York lifer. And he passed away April 2003. So for the final batch of episodes, Arthur Anderson replaces him. And Arthur Anderson played hotel clerk in Midnight Cowboy.
Oh, Jesus.
And in the 60s, he was on several episodes of Car 54, Where Are You? That's how old these people are.
I think the second guy was born in like 1924 or something crazy like that.
Yeah. That's though, as we see with him passing, the first Eustace passing away, that's a danger of casting very old in your show. There is something about the spirit of the voice actors that feels different from what you heard on every other Cartoon Network show at the time.
Tom Kenny is not going to make an appearance.
Right, yeah.
Well, unless he does, and I'm not certain if he does.
Well, if you look in the IMDb, it says he does. 100% he doesn't. Like this. I got to say, somebody who's not me, go to that IMDb page and clean that up because
it's a mess.
It really is. Like, it says that Billy West and Tom Kenny play the parents in this episode. They absolutely do not, and they're not in the credits. Like, none of that's there.
That sounds like wishful thinking.
I do not understand why they're credited. I just don't know at all, because they're not in the credits, but also the voice acting credits are like per season. Like, it's like, oh, the voices for this whole season were all these people. So it is hard to match up voice to voice sometimes. There basically are no celebrities in it except for Alan Cumming plays a dangerous Scotsman in one episode. And we we have Bart's mortal enemy, Linda Lavin. She plays a mother bird in it.
She deserved all of those prank phone calls.
That's why, again, and you know this is true, because when I saw those names in the credits on IMDb, I pulled up that episode on Verve and made double sure it actually was credited that way in the credits. But one other actor I do want to spotlight who is in this episode as the movie director is the late Peter Fernandez, who was a recurring actor on the show, but was voice director every episode. I think he owned the studio. He is a localization legend. I did not realize this.
Really?
If you listen to an English dub of something, and not just anime or Godzilla movies, but also like Cinema Paradiso and all these other films from the 60s, he very likely was the voice director on it and acted in it. Like Astro Boy, he worked on that. Speed Racer, he is Speed Racer.
So, wow, so the main zombie in this is Speed Racer.
He's the original Speed Racer and Rex Racer. He's both of them in it.
Oh my gosh.
So Peter Fernandez, like a total legend. He's great. I also found this very weird thing I'd never heard of before, and I'm a Letterman mega fan, but a thing I didn't know was in 1986, for some reason, one night, an episode of David Letterman took the place of The Tonight Show. And so they were going to air a second Letterman rerun right after that in 1986. And they decided, instead of just playing a plain old rerun, they would get an episode from a year before and hire Peter Fernandez and his group of voice actors to dub over the episode word for word.
That is such a classic, like, kooky old Letterman thing.
It's amazing. Letterman is voiced by Peter Fernandez, basically doing his Speed Racer voice.
Can I watch this on YouTube?
It is on YouTube.
Oh, that rules.
Yes, in full, and like a really good. It's like the first episode or one of the earliest appearances by Sandra Bernhardt on the show, and it's the full 40 minutes on YouTube, dubbed over by the Speed Racer
cast. My
cast.
God, that's great.
It's so amazing, and I thank whoever put it on YouTube. It's so great. So yeah, Peter Fernandez sadly passed away 2016, no longer with us, but a true localization legend. Like, he thankless work in the 60s dubbing over Godzilla movies and Speed Racer. Like, yes, it's easy to make fun of all the dubbing in Speed Racer, but they were literally inventing dubbing as they're doing it.
Yeah, and like working with like physical tape.
Yes, yeah. And I also want to say the original music was composed by local New York talent Jody Gray and Andy Erzin. They don't have a lot of TV work, mostly, again, educational PBS stuff. I get a feel for a lot of this production. It's a bunch of New York art weirdos who get occasional checks from PBS.
I think so. And the music isn't like catchy or whatever, but it's very like appropriate and atmospheric and just like dreary and gives you anxiety. And then it's funny when the credits roll, it's like SpongeBob ukulele music.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I was thinking SpongeBob the whole time. I was like, this is a weird thing to take you out of an episode with, like, this just discordant stuff.
I think it's just to give you some levity after all that horror.
Well, as long as it ends horror. And yeah, speaking of music too, did want to shout out favorite dork band of these dorks. They Might Be Giants. They did a minute-long ode to courage in 2002. Bob shared with me. I had missed it when it aired.
That's when there were a lot of these on Cartoon Network, these little music videos they would make.
Yeah, and it's like, it wasn't done by the Stretch Films team or Dilworth. It seems like some commercial company was handed just like, oh, well, here's this character art of people who appear in it. Just have them dance around. And as John Linnell and Flansburgh sing about him, you're going to hear that song over the break. But
to be fair, half the lyrics are them going, "Courage of the Cowardly Dog."
Muriel, Eustace, somebody's in our
yeah. It's not very inventive, but I do like hearing a new song from them.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, and also when you draw in Linnell and Flansburgh, if you can see them, I wonder too if they, in 2002 after Malcolm, they have just become a kids band. I think maybe just dating back to Tiny Toons, they're like, it gets us a lot of money. We're a band for children who then we're the first like good band of children here.
That's what Weezer should have done. Honestly, they should have been. I mean, I guess they are. are in a way.
Not as
they're,
much
they're more
as
of
they
a wedding
should be.
band,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, I think they gave up on the children and now they just are like a wedding cover band. Part of me will always still love Weezer, but they might be giants I have a stronger love for.
They still kept their dignity.
Yeah, they can make a kid's soundtrack and still have more dignity than covering just songs they don't even really care about. And despite the fact that the show did a lot of work out of New York City, both Stretch Films and Chelsea Ink and Paint were based there, they still did use overseas help on it. Wang did most of it, the Korean company Wang.
Good old Wang.
They work on everything. Though they also, for some storyboarding, they did work with Vancouver's Atomic Films as well. So a bit more outsourcing than you'd expect from how in-house it sounded like Dilworth tried to keep everything. So from 1999 to 2002, Courage had pretty strong ratings. Like it was among the top rated Cartoon Network stuff, though I definitely think it was behind Ed, Edd and Eddy in the ratings, but it did all right. Like it got 4 seasons, which there's a lot of 1 season or 2 season shows in Cartoon Network. So it shows Courage did better than those.
It had it lasted as long as all these shows lasted for the most part, like 52 episodes, but it had the unfortunate circumstances of being aired right when SpongeBob started. Like as the SpongeBob escalation happened, like at the height of SpongeBob, Courage is off the air. Like airs the last episode in 2002.
That's true. And I guess even a somewhat successful Cartoon Network show looks like a loser compared to the massive hit that is SpongeBob. And I like, not to say Courage didn't get any merch. It got some merch, but nothing compared to SpongeBob or even Ed, Edd and Eddy, I think.
Yeah, go back to our SpongeBob TV episode, even the movie one. Like I was working at a mall in 2002 and like Suncoast just had the SpongeBob section. I think like every store just said, well, here's our SpongeBob stuff just right in this corner.
Demand calls for it, so here's the SpongeBob section and right next to the South Park section, I would bet. The episodes, over 52 episodes, they covered a lot of stuff. They did do standard Monster of the Week where just a weird thing shows up, sometimes a digital element, not a drawn thing too. But others did engage in ideas of like death or sadness. There's one called The Mask, which they did sneak in like a gay couple into it. Like,
yeah, I watched the YouTube video about that one.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And Dilworth, in an interview, copped to it. He's like, yeah, that was intentional. You're not reading too much into this. This was us sneaking a gay couple into the show, two female characters. And also like some of the saddest ones, like Last of the Star Makers. What a sad, that's the one about the space octopuses or space squids. It's really sad.
They're able to use this like incredibly basic premise, not basic in the slang sense, but just like a thing shows up and it wants to kill them. They were able to do so much with it with like almost 100 episodes.
Yeah.
And everyone is like, there's 52, but they're split in half, and there's like a few ones that are just like the entire length.
Yeah, there's like, I think only 2 double length one. The Mask is one of them, but yeah. And once they've got 52, that's the magic number. That's enough to show one each week forever.
It's the highest number.
And so Courage falls out of the limelight. Like, you will see Courage appear in video games here and there more than the Ed Boys, honestly.
He's go-kart racing. He's playing baseball.
And Courage, after it ended, Dilworth first went back to his kind of esoteric artsy-fartsy roots with the 2005 short Life in Transition, which again, like the main character is just him, and it's just like a character dances, and it looks like a painting, and it's nice and all, but it's again, I just get a little tired of artsy-fartsy dialogue-free art like that.
I want the adorably hideous 90s designs back.
It's it's too artistic. Though he would still take on commercial pitches from then on too. Like in 2008, him and a number of animators follow Fred Seibert to Random Cartoons to pitch their pilot. He does one called Garlic Boy, which would air 1 month on Random Cartoons after the Adventure Time pilot. Though sadly, unlike Adventure Time, there was no second life for old Garlic Boy.
I did skim through that. It seems like so visually lackluster compared to everything else he's done. Maybe he was going for something more marketable, but it just seems so like, I don't know, milquetoast.
I wonder, was he holding himself back some to try to sell something commercial, or was Random Cartoons not as free? Well, that feels unlikely because Adventure Time is such a weird ass pilot. So yeah, maybe he was just trying to be more normal for the normies. In the decade plus since Garlic Boy, Dilworth has been working alternately on other independent short films, getting more into CGI, and pitching a return for Courage at times. Like in 2014, Stretch Films produced a CGI Courage return short called Fog of Courage.
But did it not air in America?
I don't think it did.
That's
no.
bizarre, and I couldn't
Yeah.
find a way to watch it, and I really want to because, like, in the back half of the season, they add, like, CGI stuff, and, like, there's, like, a title card at the end with, like, a CGI Courage. I'm just like, what? Were they just experimenting with CGI? Were they like, can we do a whole CGI thing? Back in, like, 2002?
I think they saw, like, well, we can make a CGI Courage, but we can't really animate it as a weekly show. I mean, this is, when they designed that CGI Courage in 2000, like, Reboot was still having trouble producing 13 episodes every 2 years. But by 2014, they could do a full short called Fog of Courage, which I watched it. It's you got to dig into Daily Motion.
Daily Motion,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I figured it'd be there.
It's fine. It really is just like a new Courage, except it's in CGI with a lot of the old cast, some of them in their final roles.
They found a new old man.
And so they produced that in 2014 as a pitch for like, see, we could do more Courage, but nobody bit. Cartoon Network didn't do more of it then. And the most recent update I found was from a 2019 interview in Vulture with John R. Dilworth, where he mentioned that right now he is pitching again to Cartoon Network. He says it was his fourth such pitch with the company. So there were other times that didn't even go as far as a pilot, that like he did with Fog of Courage. So he's like, yeah, you know, don't get your hopes up too much, guys. But he's really hoping it'll pay off this time. Rumors say that it's actually a prequel title called like Before Courage, where it's like Courage is younger and it's before he's with Muriel or something. So that was his hope in late 2019. I wonder how that hopes have changed in any way over the last year.
I loaded up the old Daily Motion machine and I was skimming through it as you were talking, Henry, and like it looks really good. Like they didn't have the technology in the early 2000s to do like wild takes and these deformations of these rendered models, but they clearly have the technology like 6 years ago. And I also feel that like if you existed in the 90s, you will come back. And they just barely made it out of the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they barely made it, you know, like it was like on the border of 99, 2000 when the show aired. So it's like, you're in, you will come back.
Yeah, it seems like Cartoon Network is ready to bring back anything with that kind of nostalgia to
Just
it.
like, oh God, do you remember this? Does somebody remember this?
And especially with HBO Max, like, please,
Yeah.
do you remember things? You'll sign up for this. Like, I'm still waiting for that announcement. Hopefully, I think in the future we'll get Adventure Brothers on HBO Max. But yeah, for now, Before Courage is just a dream in John R. Dilworth's eyes. And that's the history up to now. So why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, we're going to be listening to Everyone Wants to Direct and Remembrance of Courage Past.
Don't go anywhere, because we're coming right back. If I have my way, some of us won't be all of us.
Eustace, Muriel, somebody's at the door. Creepy, surreal, someone better get the door. Someone better get the door. Who's gonna get the door? Courage the cowardly dog. Courage the cowardly dog. Something horrible wants to destroy our humble nowhere shack. Who will protect our home? Someone protect our home. Who will protect our home? Courage the cowardly dog. Courage the cowardly dog. Courage the cowardly dog. Courage the cowardly dog.
Welcome to the break, everybody. Henry here, and what courage you have just listening to this podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Bob Mackey, and if we had a mini-series about this show, it'd be called Courage the Cowardly Pod. Don't steal that.
No,
it could still
that's
happen.
right.
There's 52 episodes of this.
And a big thank you to our premium patron, Elle, for choosing this one. And we appreciate Elle and all of our supporters at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
That's right. If you want to be a patron and get all kinds of cool stuff on top of that, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there. For $5 a month, you'll get all kinds of great stuff, including all of our limited miniseries. The most recent one that we're doing right now, it's currently unraveling, is Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2. That is 9 new episodes of Talking Futurama to get you through the rest of 2020. Our other miniseries to date have been Talking Critic, the previous episodes of Talking Futurama. We also have things like Talking Mission Hill and Talk King of the Hill, and on top of that, interviews, deleted scene specials, and season wrap-ups for Talking Simpsons. So much is going on there. Over 100 bonus podcasts, and the great thing is when you sign up for $5 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you get everything we've made for the past 3.5 years immediately upon signing up. You get access to all of that stuff the second you sign up at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. But when you sign up for $10 a month, you'll get all the $5 stuff plus access to one Megalon podcast once a month just for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon movie. You get to hear a free preview of it each month, but the full thing, often up to 4 hours long, is only available to $10 and up premium patrons at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. They get all the $5 stuff and our monthly What a Cartoon Movie, where we cover a different animated feature film each month. This month in November, you'll get to hear Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, the series that actually prevented Courage the Cowardly Dog from getting an Oscar. And if you sign up, you'll get access to the entire back catalog as well, like Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, Return of Jafar, Space Jam, Beavis and Butthead Do America, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and many, many, many more. Over 100 hours of a back catalog of podcasts for you. In addition to all of that other stuff, if you are a $10 and up subscriber at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never signed up for Patreon before, it's so easy to do. And once you do, you're given access to a code. You can access that code at any time you want. You just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to the podcast. It's so easy to do. And once you do that, you can listen to our bonus podcast alongside of your regular podcast as part of your podcasting lifestyle. And Patreon also has a great app for any smart device, so you can listen to our bonus episodes that way as well. But either way you do it, it is so easy to access all the bonus stuff happening at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
All right, now muster back up that courage again and pull up some chicken dumplings for the rest of our podcast about Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh, sure. It's easy to be brave when your enemy comes from a linen closet. But what happens when they come a little weirder?
Courage the Cowardly Dog, a brand new series, tonight at 10:30 on Cartoon Network.
Shake, Courage, shake.
We interrupt this program to bring you the following station identification. You're watching Cartoon Network. Stupid station identification.
And now back to Courage the Cowardly Dog.
We interrupt this program to bring you Courage the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage the Cowardly Dog. Abandoned as a pup, he was found by Muriel, who lives in the middle of nowhere with her husband, Eustace Bang. But creepy stuff happens in nowhere. It's up to Courage to save his new home. Stupid dog, you made me look bad.
Okay, we are back from the break, and you got to hear the opening song, which is not really even a song. It's
No, I would say points off. I've never liked this intro. It feels like a lack of confidence that they need to explain this very simple premise. I don't know why they go to such lengths to explain this. It would have been like a much better thing if it was an atmospheric little piece.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And this show has so much atmosphere. It feels weird. Like somebody didn't have the confidence in this show.
Totally. When the format is so clear of like, yeah, it's an old man, an old woman, and their dog in the middle of nowhere. It's very clear.
Yeah, but then the man has to be like, this is Courage, and he lives with these people, and every day these weird things come to his house.
And then it just ends with like Courage being like hit of just like, you suck, dog, shut up. Like, it's like, God, that's so mean. So the first one here, Everyone Wants to Direct, written by Craig Shemin. He has mostly writing credits in Henson shows.
Okay.
Like he He's a credited writer on Muppet Treasure Island and also the Wubulous World of Dr. Seuss. So that's his background. I'm thankful that Elle picked out this one because this is a very standard Courage of, a happy but dysfunctional family is interrupted by a random monster showing up at the front door
to kill them. Yeah. And it's the show is like basically dramatic irony of the show, and that the human characters are never aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
But the dog is constantly aware and has horrible anxiety attacks.
It's a fun challenge for the writers each time to be like, how clueless can we get away with making Muriel and Eustace this time? I also did have to wonder, and I don't know why, but like I did pause to be like, wow, 5 credited storyboarders on one 11-minute thing? What's going on there? Even then that was not the standard. You'd get 2 storyboarders back then.
Maybe there were a lot of revisions. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with this episode. I liked it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, we get a nice little middle of nowhere establishing shot, though definitely when they show that moon, like you can see the edges on the photograph.
Yeah. All the flaws are there that were just completely covered up by a CRT TV.
Yeah. But as usual, Courage is happy in Muriel's arms until someone knocks at the door.
Oh! Wonder who that could be.
Hello.
Hello?
Who the heck are you?
I'm Benton Tarantella. Benton Tarantella? The famous independent movie director?
Oh, Eustace, he's a famous movie director.
Never heard of him.
I knew I saw your face before. You've been on television, haven't you?
Well, yes.
I knew it. I just knew it. He's famous, Eustace.
Big deal. What do you want?
I'll explain. May I?
Oh, yes.
Great voice on the zombie guy. It's sort of like a Boris Karloff cadence, but without the accent.
Yeah, it's and that's Fernandez doing it.
Yeah.
It's so. It's also the voice of like a life has been lived in that voice too. Just like yes.
And I did laugh at the Courage noises. They're every noise is funny. I don't mind so much that he talks. He barely talks in these that we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, with the name Benton Tarantella, like. It's a Quentin Tarantino name, but he definitely is more supposed to be like George Romero. Like he looks more like Romero in design, and of course the zombie stuff. By 1999, Tarantino had not yet done his zombie movie. It's coming, but not yet.
Is that Planet Terror?
Well, I guess he's actually just a producer on that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's he technically hasn't done directed a zombie movie yet. I mean, Death Proof is as closest to a genre film in that way, but even that is like it's meant to be realistic to a degree. I like too that Muriel she's very unplugged from pop culture, and that Tarantella is mad that he isn't recognized instantly. But eventually she's like, I must have seen you on television. Yeah, you're
She's
famous.
very credulous.
She's
easily flattered.
Yeah, she's sweet and trusting. That's why you can never be mad at Muriel, even if she is kind of silly. She's a silly dame sometimes. Yeah, it's also just great posing on Courage, just being this nervous little dog in her lap, like, because you've seen those dogs in your life who are just like
constantly vibrating,
only happy in their mommy's arms.
Yeah, it's the only source of warmth. They don't have enough blood.
And I like too that they throw out terms like scouting locations, rack focus, dolly shop. Like it's clever, and also that the director pretending the script is real and it not actually his evil plan. It's all funny stuff there, conceptually. And I like too that Eustace does not give a shit about any of this.
Yeah, and then the guy is like basically a zombie with like the Groucho Marx novelty glasses on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that obviously Muriel and Eustace can't see through. Another thing though that like grosses me out watching this now, just the mouth chart on Eustace with his gums,
the gray gums. Yeah,
yucko. But I like that Eustace eventually comes on board once money is mentioned.
We ain't interested.
We'll pay tons of cash.
Okay, we're interested.
Excellent. Now, if you'll both sign down there on the X.
So much screaming.
one ever told you that you should be in pictures? Oh, my goodness, no.
Here's your contract. When do we get paid?
Right after we shoot the movie. And we start shooting tonight.
It also reminds me of an early 90s cartoon, not a late 90s one, because of this all the screaming. You're right. Courage, most of his dialogue is screaming and going, oh.
I like those more than the scream. The screams are good, and the Marty guy does a really good job, but I especially love just like, just his nervous noises. Though, as an adult now, I'm just so stressed out watching it. I guess I have too much familiarity with my own anxiety that I can just see it through Courage, and it activates me. But he is such a great, like, Looney Tunes wild takes machine, especially, I mean, such a great choice that he has a hole in one of his teeth, too.
Yeah, like a knot hole, basically. Yeah. And, like, how he walks around basically on, like, one toe at a time. He's got, like, 3 toes on his feet. He's got these, like, dainty little legs that he walks around on.
Yeah, that's such funny movement to him. Yeah, and that... I like, too, that every time Muriel and Eustace are looking away just when, like, a hand falls off or his face falls off. I mean, as a viewer, it's meant to frustrate you, where you're just like, just look, listen to Courage. Oh, you stupid idiots. Yeah, there's a couple times where I'm like, when Courage turns into a zombie to try to explain it, it's a very Scooby-Doo thing.
Yeah, and it's a callback to the short, where in the short he, like, to mime what's happening, he turns into the monster.
Yes, yeah, you're right, yeah. And his fun little act outs, but that is where I got my Family Guy quote I looked up, like, so can the family understand the baby, or what's the deal with that?
It's like a John and Garfield kind of deal, right?
Yeah. Well, and two, I shouldn't put that much grounded view on it because this is extra cartoony of its era. Like it's like asking the same of like, but how does Daffy Duck put his beak back every time? You know, that wouldn't actually work.
Some sort of magic beak.
And like most monsters, it's Muriel who is more in danger from it than Eustace. Though I guess this show doesn't work without Eustace if they're going to just repeat what happened in the pilot in structure every time. But I hate Eustace so much that I'd rather he stayed dead.
It'd be interesting if they made that the gag, is that he dies at the end of every cartoon as well, or like something happens to him.
It doesn't happen enough. It doesn't happen in this one. I did watch a few others that did end with, and then a horrible thing happens to Eustace. So you get it every now and then, but I'd prefer, again, if we're going to have an abusive father figure, at least do something horrible to him every episode. That's what I say.
You know, you mentioned Scooby-Doo, and I was wondering, was there ever a Courage and Scooby-Doo crossover? And I just found a promo ad.
Oh, really?
In which there are monsters coming to the house, and they chase Courage upstairs to the attic, and they're like, descending on him, and he's being cornered, and they take off their masks, and it's Shaggy and Scooby.
Whoa.
And they have an exchange with Courage.
That's great.
I was figuring, like, they were playing around with their characters a lot in these promos. They had to cross over with the other scared dog.
Totally.
Right?
Oh, man, that's great. All right. I think I might insert that right here.
Dig this, Yappy Dog. We'll handle all the creepy villain angles on this network. Well, Yappy Dog.
Stupid dog! You made me miss who the villain was.
Hey, like, what's this?
Oh, Courage. It's only the Cartoon Network.
Now I'll never get to sleep.
That fits with that. We talked about it on Ed, Ed and Eddie. The Daphne goes on a date with Eddie.
That's right. Yeah.
Bit. So I'm glad Courage got to play along with the Scoob and the gang too. That's a perfect fit. Like, he's kind of the inverse of Scooby in his size, but they're very similar. Also, he's not hungry. Or I guess, well, he likes eating something in this, but he's not like a pig.
He's not completely food motivated.
Yeah. Also, another thing that shocked me in this ep that I feel like they wouldn't do in Cartoon Network these days, when Tarantella is mad that Courage is almost going to reveal something, he just kicks him, just like, bam, kick a dog.
Every moment that Courage is catching wise, he just gets kicked by a foot.
Yeah. And yeah, as he takes them into the basement to plan out his shot, I do like the little gag of him doing the widescreen on his fingers. That's fun. he's really getting into this part that is really just about tricking people into resurrecting the dead so he can eat both of them. And I do think it's a good, when he's like, oh, that's a good shot. I think it is too. You get to see all three of them in the same widescreen. It's nice.
And it's all just set up for his hand to fall off while he's doing the rectangle.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah. So yes, as Eustace is not listening, he's just not only excited about getting all that money, but also helping out. You know, he's actually kind of happy with digging. And he's annoyed that Courage won't get out of the way.
In this scene, you will play the victim of the zombie sacrifice.
Jesus, that's so exciting.
What's my role? Your role is digging the zombie's tomb. Now you're talking. Get away from me. This is my role. And don't let me catch you down here again, stupid scene-stealing dog.
Sorry, no record of Benton Tarantella in the Independent Film Database or in any film listings. Hey, you want to sing a song, I know?
Just keep checking.
So he's got his computer friend. I do like that they gave him somebody to talk to.
Yeah, but it has to be like a jerk too.
Yeah.
But he does need something to give him information because you need background info on each monster that shows up every time.
Because he can't solve the problem with his own know-how every time.
Yeah, well, he's not a Velma type either, so it's research for him isn't easy. The computer just tells him stuff.
I like how in the middle of nowhere, in this elderly people's house, he has the internet.
Yeah, you're right.
It's very funny.
And as I had done, I had been using Internet Movie Database so much in prep for this, to hear them shout out to IMDb or an online database, that shows you how old IMDb is now, that it can be referenced in a 21-year-old cartoon.
I remember being excited by IMDb, but I can see every movie this person was in.
And that's when trivia was fresh too. It's like, wow, that isn't a ghost in 3 Men and a Little Baby or whatever. Now all trivia is boring. It's just, you got to dig deeper. You can't just end with IMDb trivia.
It's so easy to find. In fact, if you watch something on Amazon, it just shoves trivia in your face.
Every once in a while, if I read a trivia thing now on IMDb, I'm like, that sounds too good to be true. I have to find a source. I feel like IMDb has to source these trivia now. Wikipedia at least bothers sourcing them. But yes, the computer, the English voice computer, that's voiced by Simon Prebble, an English actor who worked in UK television and stage productions in the 60s and 70s and has little other cartoon work or really any recent credits. So I think it's just another elderly actor in the New York area.
In New York, yeah.
And I like, too, that Eustace, he always treats Courage horribly, but this time it's because he thinks he's trying to steal his moment. I like that, too.
And it's also fun that in this kid's cartoon, he finds out, oh, yeah, these are mass murderers. These zombies.
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. In this history of the directors, these guys did some heinous stuff.
Amateur filmmakers slay 12. Oh, no! Benton Tarantella and Errol Van Volkheim pose as film directors to lure unsuspecting victims to their fate. Tarantella and Van Volkheim jailed. Van Volkheim released for good behavior. Tarantella dies in prison. I knew it! Tarantella's a zombie! Ooh. But where's this other guy, Van Volkheim?
He's dead.
Yes!
And he was buried in a cemetery
Good?
that this house was built over.
Not good.
That's a fun cheat. They just happen to be on top of the other zombie.
It's funny to think that this in the middle of nowhere farmhouse, they're like, well, we have all space around us. Let's build on the cemetery of all things we can build on. But yeah, they get to have them say, they murdered 12 people. Amateur filmmakers killed 12 people.
And you think they're getting around saying the word dead or died, but then they say it twice.
Yeah.
At the end. Because they say slays or led them to their fate, but then he's like, he's dead. He died in prison.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Oh, God. And that also, I think, to him saying, good behavior jokes, I always think of those as, teaching a generation of kids this lie that jail's too nice to people.
So that is
let out
true.
Too many people. But yeah, hearing died in prison on a Cartoon Network show is just a crazy line to hear. But yeah, it's also funny comedic timing of Courage going, good. It's good he's buried. But yes, Eustace, very good at digging for a man his age. He's already dug up. Well, I keep wanting to say Erich von Stroheim because that's who the name is based on.
It's von Volkheim.
Right, okay. And this is where Courage goes over the script and here's the plans.
Scene 1, fool old people. Scene 2, dig big hole. Scene 3, when planets align, dead partner rises from the grave. Scene 4, eat old lady.
Perfect. You're just in time, doggy. I have a great role for you. You'll play the dog locked up in the trunk. Eustace?
Stupid overacting dog! And quit stealing my scenes!
That's very good, Courage. I didn't know you could act.
The screaming from inside the chest is very funny, too.
Yeah. And then it leads to Muriel thinking like, boy, what a good actor with that screaming.
But now Eustace has just become a prima donna as well.
Yeah. And then anytime Benton tells him to do something, he's like, all right, I'm into it. Like, that's so great that he hates movie making until it's his chance to do it. I guess that too follows the pattern, though, of the pilot, which is Muriel pretty much doesn't notice anything, but when he transforms into a chicken, he loves it. He's like, yeah, I'm a chicken now.
It's a chance to be mean. Murderously
what a monster.
mean.
A monster. And again, calling that dog overacting. But him reading the script out loud too, I just love. He goes like, scene 4, eat old lady. So we see the planets align. The zombie comes out of the ground.
Oh man, that is again. I'm almost 40, but if I was like a kid watching this, that's legitimately scary.
I'm writing a letter to Cartoon Network after that.
I'm a concerned parent. The zombie coming out of the ground, and there's nothing funny about it. It's just a creepy ass drawing, and he's like screaming coming out of the ground too.
Yeah, I think they challenge themselves to be like, let's actually scare kids. Like the way its hair is moving around and just the low amount of flesh on them is they could have played a sillier zombie. You know, honestly, they're right up there with the scariness level of the zombies in Zombie Island, the Scooby movie.
And he's way more mangled than Tarantella, this von Volkheim guy.
I guess because he's been buried longer?
I think so.
I also like that once Courage is locked in the trunk, he, though, still has cartoon logic of being able to walk around in it and pull things.
Stick his hand through the keyhole.
Yeah. Oh, and also the Night of the Living Dead connection I really like is that it's like space magic that brings back the zombies. It's not said out loud, but it's like, oh, the planets align and then raises the dead. And von Volkheim comes up, and it's kind of sweet how the two zombies like grab each other's shoulders like, yes, we are back. And I like how Eustace says great effects. That's funny.
I do like the Tarantella's like, he's got like a catchphrase. He's like, great, this is going to be great.
Yes, yeah. It does sound like a constantly reassuring director on something like, yes, that's great. Now let's try it again. And he moves up Eustace to director, though. He'd really just be officially second unit director.
I agree. That's factually correct.
At least, in the IRS papers, you got to have these correct. Or for the DGA at the very least.
He tells them to pay his tons.
And Eustace, though, they should just eat him first, but I guess they need him to hold the camera, I guess, or to make sure it's filmed, because they are doing this as an excuse to get help doing a resurrection. But I think Tarantella actually does care about it being a film.
He wants to make a snuff film.
There's some very creepy zombie drool as they go over Muriel as well. She's completely like, yep, I'm acting in a movie. Ha ha ha. And I also like that Eustace takes his direction seriously. He's like, hey, you're blocking her. Move over there.
I think it's sweet. He wants to get his wife in the shot.
Yeah, that is nice. A rare, in his own mean way, being nice. And I think it's pretty funny that it turns into very anticlimactic in the end. Because they're just about to eat her, and then Eustace is like, wait, what's in the script? And he reads the new script written by Courage, which just says, they let the dog go. Really? I wonder if he wrote Who Let the Dogs Out.
Oh, jeez. And then the zombies go back to the hole, and the dog buries them.
Yes, yeah. It's I like how they just give up. They're like, well, if it's in the script.
Now what?
It says that the zombies go back in the hole and the dog buries them.
What? This is not my work. This is not my work.
I can't believe it.
You are such a lousy writer. You have always been a lousy writer.
It's not my work.
I come all this way just for you to write me back in the grave. That's it. Our partnership is kaput once and for all. I never want to work with you again.
Who wants to work with a hack like you, anyway?
Oh, shut up.
I never saw that ending coming.
Courage, isn't this exciting?
And it might sound like we're speeding through this, but I was just thinking, like, not a lot happens in quotes, but like it's played out so slowly, not in a negative term, but just for the tension of it.
Yeah.
Like not a lot of events happen in these episodes, but they're paced so well because they have to draw out the tension of bad things potentially happening to the characters.
Yeah, you're right. To describe actions, it goes much faster than so many of the ones where we've like, and then this happened. Ooh, so much fast. But this is, you're right, just like, oh, the zombie's moving a little closer. Oh, they might eat her. Oh, this worked. Like, and also another thing that fills that time is constantly cutting to Courage going like, no.
Yeah, like there are so many slower scenes in this where like the zombies just like looking at the planets moving and this guy talks very slow, so it's not a super fast-paced episode.
But I do love that they build up all of this tension and all this like legit scary stuff, but once the script tells them to do something else, the zombies are like, well, all right. I object to this, but clearly it's in the script, so we got to do it. And they just leave of their own accord.
They also unearth this old squabble between them.
Yes. Yeah.
And their working relationship.
I love that too. It's like, I'm never working with you again. Funny animation too of Courage just with superhuman strength picking up the entire clod of dirt and shoving it back on there.
The last joke this goes out on feels like something is missing or they just like wasn't delivered the right way, but like Courage is like, I'm ready for my close-up now, and the camera zooms in on him and he goes, ouch, not that close. But I feel like there should be like cracked glass or something like that on the lens or something, and it feels like the ouch, not that close is like ADR because it's just on a frozen frame of the show.
Yeah, you're right. I think you just After Effects add in a cracking camera over it that might work. Yeah, it's again, it is them hitting another of the beats of the pilot, which the pilot ends with him talking to camera. So they do it again this time because he's got the Groucho glasses. And I also like the Eustace is like, where are we getting paid?
That's true. They're watching the movie on TV.
Which I guess Courage put it on the TV. Maybe he developed all the camera footage. But yeah, I think him saying like, I'm ready for my close-up, that's not as funny as this should never happen to a dog.
He's a big fan of Sunset Boulevard, so
yeah, I thought they go even a little farther with that. He should have said Mr. Tarantella. But yeah, so that's the first one. Now we're jumping from season 1 all the way to the last episode of the show. Though this is technically there's one episode after this called Perfect, but this is like the emotional climax of the series, I think.
The Perfect episode is also super creepy. It has like a CGI monster. And this one, like talking about scaring kids, so you have like zombies, which you could be afraid of as a kid. But this one is like, what if your parents are taken away?
It's intense, man. Especially, they weren't scared to get sad in this show at all. And this one especially, like hearing some of the lines said by the parents as they're dragged away, it's like, oh boy.
And this is like an origin story. And I didn't think I had seen this one, but when I saw a clip later of Courage opening the door latch with his tongue, suddenly I remembered like watching this live.
Oh wow, man.
So I have memories of seeing this one.
I didn't see this one live. I'd only seen it in clips of great endings or good final episodes. And usually on this podcast, we would not do a finale of something as the first episode, but I think this one is interesting because while it is like an emotional finale, this has no real continuity to the show. They're all interchangeable. So while this reveals some old history for Courage, it doesn't like end the status quo or like, and then Courage moved away or anything like that.
Yeah.
And there's not anything to really spoil on the show. I guess this just gives in background because in the opening, the overly descriptive opening, it says Courage was found by Muriel as a little baby. And so this just
shows
he like
you sitting in trash in that opening too?
I think so. So that's how the dumpster pit in this, they're just writing backwards from it, I guess. But yeah, this answers a question that fans had probably had for a long time. Like, what happened to Courage's parents? What happened? And yes, this one is written by award-winning indie animator Michael Sporn. And the episode begins with something so sweet, a lovely dinner of only chicken dumplings.
Sounded pretty good. I thought these were pierogies when I first saw this, and they made me very hungry for pierogies, which I haven't had since quarantine started.
Yeah, there was a really good Russian bakery in the Richmond area of San Francisco I'd go to when I visit my friends there, and I miss those pierogies. Are they greasy? Hell yeah. Are they filled with cheese and potatoes? Yep, but...
That's what makes them good.
But yeah, this... Courage is just as hungry as we are in this first clip.
Yes, Courage. The chicken dumplings are just about done. I know they're your favorite.
Yes!
Eustace, dinner's about ready. Here we go.
That's a great drawing too of him like eating all the dumplings and laughing with like just dumpling crap smeared all over his teeth and mouth.
Just a mouthful of gray mush as he happily laughs. I mean, I wanted to get that sound in there too, just because you rarely get to hear Courage that happy, and he's like.
All the Courage noises just make me laugh so much. This actor's great.
And yeah, seeing how sad and desperate he is looking at the skillet and he's like chewing on the chair, like, oh man, it's also sad that like you start with Courage. Courage rarely gets to be this happy at the very start of an episode. So that should be your warning that he's going to get it worse than usual in this one. And yeah, just drink.
He must be punished.
Because he dares to have happiness for 1 minute. And in this case, what punishes him is as he is pouring milk to drink with his chicken dumplings, which like, ugh, drinking a glass of milk with a meal like that, it just makes me gag the thought of it.
I hope people don't do that anymore.
Our parents were wrong, but that's how they grew up.
They were misled by the Dairy Council.
Yeah, I'd just be drinking my soy milk anyway because I'm a soy boy for that soy milk.
Almond milk for me.
Oh, actually, yeah, I'm more of an almond guy. Well, sometimes silk, sometimes almond. Doesn't matter. Anyway.
What about oat milk?
On this thing of regular milk, though, there is a have you seen me missing dog thing, which makes Courage have a dissociative episode.
Jesus Christ, I know.
It's so dark, just and real.
He goes so catatonic in this, and I was looking it up. I guess conceivably there could have, not by 2002, but these were phased out in the late 90s, but I was alarmed to find out they only began in the mid 80s.
Really?
These missing children on milk carton things.
Wow, I would have thought those were from like the 60s or 70s, but
it was the whole like playing up like
danger.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
There is danger everywhere. Not from your family. They're fine. Strangers are going to get you, and they all worship Satan.
Yeah, that's true, man. I think on a Red Letter Media not too long ago on Best of the Worst, they watched one of those like guides to satanic stuff for cop videos. That was just like, God, this is all just bullshit. You guys have too much to not worry about right now that you have to make up satanic bullshit.
How to take down a satanic like ceremony. Yeah, that one's great. I mean, did you remember these from your childhood, these children on the milk cartons? I definitely did, because it was like haunting. It's just like, this can happen to you.
You know, no, I definitely had those fears. I mean, watching an Unsolved Mysteries about a kidnapped child gave me nightmares, but no, I don't think. I mean, I was, again, a kid who didn't drink any milk out of the carton, and I think my mom actually favored the gallon-sized jugs, which did not have those photos on them. So no, I didn't get my worrying and anxiety from those. Just, I remember there was a story on Unsolved Mysteries about a kid being like grabbed out of their window by some scary man. And so like for weeks after I locked my window, instead of having nice fresh air come in, I locked my window.
That was like a writer's workshop for your nightmares, Unsolved Mystery. Just God. What can I be afraid of now? But yeah, now we have like Amber Alerts and stuff. But yeah, this was a real thing in case you don't remember this kind of thing happening.
But yes, the flashback to his parents then happens, which starts sweet, though. I'm not going to play too many of these. I kind of cut around as much baby crying as possible.
There's not a lot of dialogue in these either, so it's hard to make clips of them.
Yes.
Baby, you're supposed to catch the ball. All right. Henry. Henry, we have to get him to the vet.
I forgot another character with my name in these.
Oh, man. And I like how, in a very cartoonish way, the parents are just basically Courage's design, but like with elements added to them. Like the dad has a mustache and the mom has like, what, a hat?
Yeah, a hat and like eyelashes.
Yeah.
This flashback is sweet in that when they throw the ball at him and he starts to cry, you can see that they were a calming force for his anxiety, that it makes it all the more tragic that he loses them. Just seeing them say like, no, you're supposed to catch the ball. Don't cry here. And then he learns to not be scared of the ball. But then, of course, he gets his head stuck to like Courage's life is one of punishment.
It is. And they do something in this. I don't know if it's completely effective because the digital animation was still early where they're like cutting frames. It's like done in a more simple style. I can see what they were going for, but I don't think they had the technology to get there.
No, yeah, it just looks jumpy at times.
Yeah, it just looks cheap in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, like they animated on like every 6th frame or something. Sometimes it works for me, and especially on like a close up, you can see that the characters are painted differently. Like the parents they're not like one solid color. There's a little more fade to it. And the border around it is nice, but yeah, it doesn't fully work as a stylistic choice.
I can see what they wanted to do. Just like these like fuzzy childhood memories that might not be accurate, so they're not going to be rendered in the same way the show is.
And when my head got caught in a chair, I had this same fear.
Oh my God.
In this case, I didn't get smacked in the face with a ball, but I was just like a dumb 5-year-old saying like, I bet I can get my head through this chair. And I did. It was a slotted chair, basically like a banister on a staircase, and couldn't get it back out. And
then what happened?
I believe a coworker of my mom's came and just sawed off the top of it so I could pull my head out. So,
I figured you could like lubricate it with your tears.
We decided not to I don't know if we tried any butter or anything, but yeah, it was just destroy the chair. It was a crappy old kid's chair anyway, but
kids do stupid things. The other day I was like washing my face. I was just admiring the scar I have above my eyebrow or under my eyebrow when I ran into like a coffee table.
Ouch.
Coffee tables in the 80s could decapitate you. They were dangerous.
Why do we have such sharp coffee tables then?
Like they're going to like cut your shins open or like just scalp your child.
Oh yeah. And they should be made out of glass that your child could fall into.
Yeah, just constant like bleeding hazards all over the house.
So they then head off to the vet in the memory, and it also just feels like the doctor is so creepy, and it just feels very specific of like this trusted figure who then betrays you and takes away your parents. Like, I don't know. It feels taken from somebody's dark memories.
It made me think like, was this good for kids? Because it's like also fear your doctor. Any authority figure is going to like rob you of your innocence.
That's true. Ugh, God, man. It's so sad. Not only did they just do that of like the doctor saying like, can I see your parents in private? And just the look on the parents' face when they're just like, what? But then right after that, you have to watch a child rip its tongue out with a lollipop, and not in a funny way.
Which is easily, he grows it back, but I had to rewind. I'm like, did his tongue just get ripped off? But it did.
Just seeing a wadded up tongue torn off, like it's, but yes, I have a brief clip of the vet and how creepy he sounds.
Okay.
May I talk with the two of you for a moment in private?
Another creepy old man voice in this show too.
Yeah, a lot of Courage and old man. It doesn't mix. He just really can't deal with them. But yes, like Yoshi's Island, his baby crying is a little tough to listen to.
I had Yoshi's Island vibes as well.
It's scary enough that when Courage finally sees where his parents went, that he sees them like carried away in a net. But hearing the mother say like, don't take me from my baby. I'm like,
that's heartbreaking.
That really hurt. Like, that's way worse than just vague screaming to just say that she knows. She's like, please, I don't want to leave my child alone.
I was thinking like, what other kids' cartoons can get this scary? And Gravity Falls comes close, but they do undercut a lot of the horror with like irony and things like that, where this show kind of doesn't.
The closest in this episode they do to it is the little hallway gag they do later, but pretty much this episode doesn't pull back from it. They're like, you're just going to feel sad. So Courage is so destroyed by his memory that he is unmoving, and when Eustace is trying to be mean to him, he doesn't even react, which it feels like Eustace is disappointed in this. He's like, come on, I'm abusing you. React like how you're supposed to.
He even gets out the classic big scary green mask that's in the short and in the intro.
What a great callback. I loved him bringing back that mask. Yeah, but I like Eustace also, because he's an asshole, just steals Courage's favorite food because he has stopped moving.
Here they are, Eustace. Some nice hot chicken dumplings.
What's with the stupid dog? And what's he doing sitting at the table?
Courage, you haven't finished your dumplings. Is something wrong with them?
Dumpling hogging dog. Human food's too good for you. Muriel, from now on it's dog food for the dog.
You know what? We've heard 2 different Eustaces in this episode, right?
Yes.
And I wonder if they made these actors take out their teeth, because it sounds like it.
I was thinking the same thing, that if that actor still has his teeth, then he's miming having gum over his mouth as he talks. Yeah. Which, that's method acting. He sees that character doesn't have teeth. He needs to sound the same.
I feel like after a certain point in history, people just kept their teeth. But if you were born in like the 20s, odds are you don't have your teeth
I would
in the
think
90s.
so, yeah. I mean, dental technology wasn't so good then. I do feel sad seeing a catatonic Courage just smacked in the face with a bowl after his food is stolen.
Despite the tragedy behind it, it is a funny drawing of him just frozen at the table.
And the way he says, like, you don't sit at the table. Like, he's so mean, like such a mean asshole. And then they come back the next morning and Courage hasn't moved.
You're still here. You haven't moved since last night.
Why is that dog still sitting at the table?
Eustace, I'm worried about Courage. I think he's not well.
I've got just the cure. Ooga booga booga!
But nothing.
That was the famous mask.
Then as they bring up taking to the vet, Courage recalls more as he's searching through the hallway. That's like the only joke they have in there. And it actually feels weird to have, you're just supposed to be feeling sad for baby Courage. And then they have a joke of him like opens one door, an ostrich, opens another joke, a giraffe, opens a third door. It's a woman showering. And then he decides to peep more on her
And
afterwards.
I feel like there was like a network thing where he peeps more and then he giggles, but there's like a slap sound effect, but he isn't slapped.
Oh, yeah, I bet
it's
you
weird.
it
It's
is.
like you got to punish Courage for doing this because you can't peep.
You're right. Yeah, I think that's already a bad enough thing to be teaching to kids. Like, oh, you can open a door and peep on someone showering. Like, that kids don't need to know that. But it was just, that's cartoony fun behavior.
Yeah, it was cheeky
Back then, yeah. So yeah, then they cut to the parents screaming some more as they're dragged away, and just like the sounds they make here. Oh.
Yeah.
Nightmare fuel.
These poor the real millennials watch this. We were the elder millennials. They were being scarred by this, while we had been scarred by Unsolved Mysteries.
So they head back to the vet. They have renovated a lot since then, and the vet doesn't seem to recognize him at first, but then Courage definitely recognizes him.
I know just what to do with the dog, but I'd like to have a moment with him alone.
Of course, Doctor. No need to be afraid, Courage. We'll be right outside. Courage, where are you going?
Stupid dog!
More screaming.
So much screaming, but this isn't even funny screaming, or like the way Courage goes, no, like you're not laughing. You're just like, God, he's now realizing the same thing that happened to his mother and father is about to happen to him. Then it cuts back to old baby Courage, and he's like too short to open the door, and that's where the tongue opening thing. That's a really crazy drawing as well. His carbuncled tongue.
It's a weird tongue, and that's when he sees the doctor pushing his parents into a rocket ship, and his parents being blasted off into space. Basically,
it's so crazy. I think it's supposed to be a misdirect at first, that it looks like a furnace or something he's putting them into. I didn't read it as rocket at the very start.
Maybe I had just vague memories of seeing this before, but I did look like a rocket to me, but maybe there is a mislead here.
But it's very quickly, it's a rocket you see, and it's a countdown sequence. So yeah, which I think before you see this, if you just saw in the previous ones, oh, the vet took his parents, that your thought is like, well, he euthanized them or whatever. Like, so it then makes it sillier instead of just tying into your sadness of like, remember when the vet took your dog away and you never saw the dog again? In this case, it's like, no, the vet put him in a rocket and they're flying away.
They live on a dog planet, you'll find out later.
That's the lie we all tell ourselves too. Like, yeah, every pet's on a dog planet now.
I don't know when this Rainbow Bridge lore happened, but it happened recently and now everyone talks about it like it's real. And I get that. You never heard of the Rainbow Bridge?
Well, I mean, you like in Thor? Or
no, for pets.
Oh no, I haven't heard of this.
It's a way.
one.
I totally understand if you buy into it and if you want to like use it to cope or whatever. But it's just like the Rainbow Bridge is where your pets are waiting for you in heaven.
Okay.
And it's just like that's the new thing people say, like, oh, he crossed the Rainbow Bridge. My dog crossed the Rainbow Bridge. But it just happened like within the past 10 years, and now it's something everyone says.
Wow, I have not heard that one.
Yeah.
That's that sounds like look, I want to meet all of my old pets in heaven, but everybody else's pets?
I want to believe it. I mean, when one of my mom's cats died, like within the past few years, she was like, "Oh, Tony crossed the Rainbow Bridge today." I'm like,
wow.
Everyone's saying Rainbow Bridge.
Man, my mom has not gotten the good news about the Rainbow Bridge.
She's just like, dog's dead.
No, I mean, like I take pet deaths bad. My mom is 10 times worse with
it. I want to. I'm not looking down on anyone who believes in Rainbow Bridge. I want to cross that bridge and meet all my friends, all my animal friends, except for Louie, my parrot, who will outlive me.
Yes, yeah, he'll be seeing you on the Rainbow Bridge later.
He'll see me in hell.
The rocket design is kind of funny too. I like that it's an old timey space rocket.
And you know what? Shooting dogs into space is an old historical thing.
That's true. Yeah,
good old Laika.
It's
a dog that died in space.
All those poor animals that died in space. That Laika, the many apes, and it's just for what reason? To prove they could live for a little bit and they'll die.
You can live temporarily in space until you run out of food and oxygen.
Yeah, I guess that's more boomer fears coming in there too. I could see Dilworth or Sporn or whoever came up with the idea pulling from a childhood sadness of like, oh, but the poor doggy never comes home or whatever. Then again, just the desperation you see of Courage, like he sees the baby dog, sees his parents are locked in there and he's trying to open the door and he can, and it's pure nightmare there too. God. And the same countdown clock is buzzing in real life and in his dreams. And that's where Courage just falls into the trash and watches his parents fly away. And it's just so sad. Meanwhile, in the real world, Courage is about to go on the same trip, which, in a certain way, it would have been good for him because he would be reunited with his parents but I guess he'd be away from Ariel.
And we don't know the dogs live after being blasted off.
No, we see him on the planet.
I mean, at this point, we don't know. He doesn't know.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And he still doesn't know, I guess, by the end.
As far as Courage knows, it's just death. But yeah, I also like that for once, which gives this real finale vibes, Eustace actually is kind of involved in helping.
Yeah, I did notice. He's not just like a mean, useless bastard.
Yeah. And also, Muriel and him show up and they know what's going on. Or at least they know Courage is in danger.
They're afraid of something. They are aware of the situation.
And this time, they also know that the vet is threatening them.
You'll be the first humans to see my secret experiment at work. Breeding dogs in space is the future.
I do like the flashback, like ticking clock kind of sound too, that lets you know that you're in the flashback. But man, it's just so sad to see baby Courage watch the parents fly away. But when it comes back, I like that Courage is doing the circular chase again with the doctor, but this time he's got more skills. Like he
can spill a bin of bolts and nuts.
He's learned all this stuff over the course of the series. He's had to fight a lot of guys to survive. So this old vet actually isn't as dangerous as it used to be.
And uses screaming as a weapon as well.
That's the best. Yeah, that again is where it gets really finale kind of plotting. All these callbacks, and for the first time ever, Courage's terrified scream and wild take is used offensively to defeat the vet. Like, that's so good finale vibe to it.
He screams into a stethoscope that he happens to be wearing in his ears.
Very useful there, yeah. And that's when he can get the key, open the door, grab Muriel and Eustace, and I love just like, again, much like the digging he did at the very end of the last one, he has superhuman strength and flings Muriel and Eustace away to safety.
And I don't think he's trying to get the guy into the ship. He just like hits him with the door to knock him out.
Yeah,
and then that ends up like trapping him in the ship.
I guess that protects Courage in a, responsibility for death way of like a censor saying Courage can't directly try to kill this guy. So it's like, oh, well, in self-defense, he accidentally put him in the rocket. But that's the least that vet deserves. What a monster that guy
who knows
is.
what happens to him in this finale we're going to get to.
Yeah, and so not only does Courage save the day, but for once, Muriel and Eustace notice.
Courage, I knew you could do it.
Blah, blah, blah. He still ain't sitting at the table.
Oh, my poor thing. Out here all alone? What courage you have. Would you like to come home with me? I'll call you Courage. We'll have a grand time.
That's sweet. All the torture you have to go through as a viewer, you're rewarded with not only a sweet moment, but like a precious lore to this series with no lore or continuity, really.
That's how he got the name Courage. And also, yeah, that Muriel's like, you saved us. And meanwhile, Eustace is still not forgiving him. Like, yeah, still can't sit at the table. But that flashback, seeing young Muriel too is very touching, like just to see.
It's like, how old is Courage?
I guess he could be like a shaking, like 14-year-old dog,
Maybe.
Like that's the kind of that old ladies really love is elderly dogs like that. But yeah, it's a really sweet little ending. After all of that sadness, you get to see the Courage. He at least instantly got a new family and with half of a nice group of foster parents. But yes, there's one last bit at the end here as revenge is taken on the vet. Space revenge.
Isn't it grand being together? Our cozy wee family. I wonder what became of the poor old veterinarian.
He's murdered by dogs.
That's a death scream there.
Yeah,
and
and
it's funny to see the Courage bow right after that.
Courage's parents are there. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's bad. I just like kind of jarring to suddenly see the title card, the end, with the CGI Courage. Just like this feels like a tech demo or something. You're trying to impress somebody, but it only happened towards the end of the series. I remember.
Yeah, I think they didn't have it ready in '99 at the very least. But I like to. They give you a little sliver of hope as a viewer. Like, well, Courage's parents are still alive, so it's not impossible that he might meet them again. You never know.
Yeah, all of the tension and anxiety and torture is just like, well, the enemy is punished, the parents are still alive, Courage gets a moment, you find out his origin story, so it all ends up being very sweet in the end.
Yeah, but boy, man, it was a little intense. I appreciate Elle for picking these ones. That it was a good combo of them, but all of the stress poor Courage goes through in 2 different time periods is a lot.
And I don't think we mentioned where to watch this, and it is on Boomerang and Verve if you want to watch it. I was tempted to get a Boomerang subscription, but I was like, not until you finish your HBO Max, young man, which I haven't really watched in like 2 months. So it's on there. There's also like DVDs. These were released on DVD for a time, and the DVDs are like all like $10.
Yeah, that's good. That's I didn't see the DVDs on there, and you can get them digitally on his episode by episode.
Yeah,
too.
I bought them a la carte because I didn't want to get Boomerang.
Yeah, no, I got it on Verve. I'd still like Verve, but hey, am I occasionally often asking myself, why do I have Verve in addition to Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus, And there's one more, Funimation. No, I got rid of Funimation. But I have Verve because it is Crunchyroll plus Boomerang, and that's enough for me. So, but I think if Cartoon Network knows what's good for them, they're going to start putting more of this stuff on HBO Max. It's actually a very limited back catalog of Cartoon Network stuff on HBO Max.
Annoys me when they could just have everything.
Yeah. I guess they have to eventually decide. They did it with DC Universe, so I guess they might do it next with Boomerang when they decide to send it to the Rainbow Bridge and just take it all on HBO Max.
So I'm looking online, and there's like a Cartoon Network Hall of Fame series of DVDs that just have every episode on like a set.
Oh.
And the Courage one is like $24.99, which is crazy. Yeah.
That's a really good for that. I only looked up the season 1 DVD. It is extra less, which is too bad, but Ed, and Eddie, I think, only had extras because season 6 was in development when 2 came out, so they could this season 2 DVDs they could actually make it. But I could see the Dilworth was like, I'm moving on, and also, unlike the Venture Brother guys, I'm not going to do this for free. The Venture Brother guys nicely do a bunch of free extras on their stuff.
Too much production value for working for no money.
For sure. But yeah, those were both really great Courage classics, and I had a good time with them. So thank you, Elle, for choosing them. You always have a great pick, and I look forward to your next one in 2021.
Yeah, I want to see some of our younger, meaning 30-year-old listeners, if this haunted you, these episodes. I kind of want to watch more because I wish I didn't dislike it, but I never just sat down and said, I'm going to watch Courage the Cowardly Dog. But I did respect it for being spooky and dark, and I did like these a lot. So yeah, thank you to our patron. Good pick. So if you want to be cool like Elle and support our shows and get all kinds of extra stuff on top of that, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there and you'll get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free. And also at the $5 level, you will get access to all of our limited miniseries, the most recent of which that's rolling out currently is Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 2. That includes the last 9 episodes of Talking Futurama, and that's only on the Patreon. And that's the entire Season 2 will be available by the end of the year. And of course, the earlier episodes are all on the Patreon along with all of our other miniseries. So much is going on there. We've been doing the Patreon for now 3.5 years. Woo. If you sign up now, you'll get access to everything we've done behind the Patreon for all that time immediately. And that is quite a few podcasts to listen to if you are ready for that much content. So yes, if you sign up for the $10 level, you get all the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one mega long podcast once a month that is only for patrons of that level or higher.
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon Movie. It's like this podcast, except the Talking Simpsons hosts cover an animated feature film in the same way we do shows like Courage. Our most recent one this month is going to be the Wallace and Gromit film, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. What a fun thing that's going to be as we enter the holiday season. And before that, we did Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. If you like this Scooby talk here, you'll love hearing us talk for almost 4 hours about the Hanna-Barbera classic. And over 100 hours of previously released What a Cartoon movies will be yours, the entire back catalog, when you become a $10 and up subscriber, along with all of the $5 stuff Bob just mentioned. It is a plethora of content for you at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast, by the way, is Retronauts. It's a classic gaming podcast all about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 exclusive episodes every month, and that is at patreon.com/Retronauts. Henry, how about you?
You can follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter. My Twitter account is HENEREYG. You'll know what's up with me when you follow me on Twitter. Plus, you should follow on Twitter at Talk Simpsons Pod, the official Twitter account of this podcast network. When new episodes of Talking Simpsons or What a Cartoon or one of our miniseries goes live, you will know about it first if you follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter. Same with any other cool news about what's going on in our lives. So please follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter.
Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next time for the Wind in the Willows episode, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and we'll see you then.
Stupid dog!
Can we start now?
How should I know?
Check the script.
Let's see. Here's the scene. The big zombie lets the dog out of the box.
What?
That's what it says.
Let me see that. I don't remember. Well, if it's in the script,